Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Glorious Estates. And tonight we're going to do something completely different, something we've never done before. So please bear with us, because tonight I'm literally switching hats. I'm going to go from my normal eyesight assistant hat to just my regular everyday hat, because today we're going to talk about jewelry in the news. I figured, hey, I don't normally go sway that far away from my jewelry stuff. But I really wanted to discuss a lawsuit that's specifically going on right now up in Massachusetts, which is going to sit in front of the Supreme Court, and it's involving, surprise, jewelry. I figured I'd bring you the story, we'd go through it, and I want to talk with you about some of the possibilities, some of the outcomes, and some of the ramifications of this case.
Everyone will have an opinion on a fight over an expensive engagement ring is now in the hands of the highest court here in Massachusetts. Thanks for staying with us. I'm David Wade.
And I'm Courtney Cole. Now, the big question is, who gets to keep that big old diamond ring if that wedding is called off? WBZ's Paul Burton breaks down the arguments on both sides of the aisle.
The ring is either yours or it's mine.
It's supposed to be a symbol of love and commitment, but now a $70,000 engagement ring has become a bitter battle between a former couple and a case that has made its way to the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court.
And award the engagement ring and wedding band back to Mr. Johnson.
According to court documents, Johnson bought the ring, one similar to this one, from Tiffany's in Boston, paying more than $70,000. Soon after, he called off the engagement because he says his bride-to-be was verbally abusive and thought she was cheating on him, which she denies.
She would have stayed. She would have stuck it out.
A trial court ruled in her favor, saying Johnson was at fault for calling off the engagement, and right now she gets to keep the ring. Johnson appealed the decision, and a Massachusetts appeals court ruled in his favor. Now it's up to the SJC to decide whether Massachusetts should follow other states where engagement rings are returned to the giver if an engagement is called off, regardless of who is at fault.
Who gets to keep the ring if we move to a no fault? Because the ring has been transferred in some respect.
So that if the marriage does not happen, the purchaser of the ring gets the ring back.
Why?
It's most equitable, Your Honor.
Arthur DeMillo is an independent appraiser and jeweler.
So my best understanding would be if the condition hasn't been met of the engagement, in other words, if the condition no longer exists, then the ring needs to be returned.
Shoppers in downtown Boston have varying opinions.
Oh, he called the wedding.
He called the wedding off.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would give it back. That's a lot of money.
I mean, she should give the ring back. It's not yours. There's no wedding.
Well, I believe the ring belongs to her because he gave it to her as a gift.
It belonged back to the man
Why do you say that?
because it's canceled. Everything is over.
The decision now lies in the hands of the Massachusetts SJC. No word yet on when a ruling is expected.
All right, so like they were talking about, this case is up in Massachusetts in the case of Bruce Johnson versus Caroline Satino. If y'all don't mind, there's a lot of different notes on this, so if you see me kind of referencing them, please forgive me, because there's a lot of information that goes along with this case, and it really is kind of deeper than most people realize. So anyhow, this couple got engaged in August of 2017, and the gentleman went out and purchased $70,000 worth of rings at Tiffany. So it was the engagement ring, the band, and a band for him. That is what the whole case is about. Plus, as soon as he issued the lawsuit to retrieve that ring, she countersued for $43,000 for dental surgery. And that was kind of supposed to be part of the deal of them getting married, and she wanted to enhance her beauty before the wedding. So the first court, and don't worry about the ring was actually secured and set with a third party, so nothing can happen to it. But the first court looked at it and figured that the breakup was Johnson's fault. After all, Bruce was the one that broke off the engagement. So they awarded Satino the engagement ring, the wedding bands, $43,000 for dental surgery, and believe it or not, $20,000 worth of late interest payments on that dental surgery. So the types of fault that we're looking at here in this kind of case is, first off, an unconditional or irrevocable fault. There's not a lot of states that have it like this. This is the states that are going to be primarily Montana and North Dakota have laws like this, that no matter what the circumstances, no matter who's at fault for the whole thing, the engagement ring is classified as an unconditional gift. There's nothing that goes along with it. If you ask somebody to marry them, they can take the ring and it is automatically theirs. Like I said, there's not a lot of states like this. Montana tends to be the one that sticks out. And you'll notice, yes, there's lots of different laws through all the different states, and they vary quite, randomly. However, a case like this could have possible ramifications, provenance for cases in the future, precedent set in a major state that other lower courts can use to refer to and look at for future lawsuits, future cases. Now, I know a lot of these cases don't traditionally get this high in the court system, mainly because no one's willing to chase lower dollar, smaller rings all the way up to a Supreme Court within a state. But in this case, this is a really interesting interesting case, because it is high dollar enough to chase all the way up to the Supreme Court for them to make a big enough decision that it does affect other states, not just the state of Massachusetts. So the second type of state is the no-fault calculation. And that's states like my own personal home of Mississippi, where it's considered a contractual gift. And in that case, because Mississippi in divorce has a no-fault rule, it's no fault during the divorce. And the ring would have to be returned to the gentleman, because at no reason whatsoever that ring still belongs to him, because it was given on condition that they get married. Now, the third, and what Massachusetts is set up, is as an at-fault state. So this is more of a traditional view on it. It depends on the cause and the condition determined by the court on whose fault it was that the marriage broke up. Well, in that case, you're going to need to involve judges in lots of smaller decisions, especially when the two parties cannot decide on who gets to keep what. But in this particular case, Massachusetts, like I said, is an at-fault state. So part of their decision was actually trying to figure out who was at fault for the breakup. So this first court in this particular lawsuit figured that it was Bruce's fault why the wedding was broke off. Now, part of the reasons that he cited was, A, she was belittling him, she was getting aggressive, she was talking to him in a manner which he did not respect. And secondly, he had actually found text messages from a friend, her friend, on her phone, talking about them having fun while he was out of town. Now, there was no actual citing of infidelity between these two, but there was accusations, there was text messages, everything like that. So that's where the court came up with the idea that it was his fault, therefore that's why she should keep the ring and the money for the dental work and the interest in the engagement rings, basically everything associated with it. They relied on the fact that it was his fault that the wedding was broke up. Now, the primary settlement of this was a 1959 court case, DeChico versus Barker. That's a U.S. case, in that it was a conditional gift, and the nature of a pledge, the implied condition is terminated without fault of the donor. So basically, if the donor didn't do anything wrong, then they would get to keep the ring. Both sides of this lawsuit actually said that they want to overrule DeChico versus Barker, citing not only overuse of courts, but getting involved in messy breakups. Now, they didn't agree on who should win the case, but they basically said the 1959 Barker-DeChico law was old, outdated, and should not be used as a precedent anymore. And that's why this case also becomes so important, because it's going to replace that DeChico versus Barker law. So Citino argued that the court should not be saddled with fault, no fault status, and rely solely on, like the Montana law, the unconditional gift rule. What the difference between a normal gift and an engagement ring is diverted to the higher court. So what their lawsuit was saying is, anytime you give a gift, whether it's a trip skiing, whether it's a purse, or whether it's an engagement ring, it is just that, it is a gift. It's not conditioned on anything. You shouldn't rely on anything. If you give somebody something, you give it to them. Now, of course, Johnson's attorneys did file into the appeals court, and the appeals court actually overturned the ruling. They actually allowed him to keep the wedding ring and the engagement ring, citing that even though there was no infidelity proved, his mindset was that there was infidelity. And that was enough fault for him to call off the wedding. Now, they ruled that he still had to pay the $43,000 for the dental work, but what they did was terminate the $20,000 worth of interest, and they factored that was way too high of a number, because what they're looking at is 12% annually as an interest charge versus the $20,000 lump sum interest charge. So the second court, the appeals court, actually in their ruling was discussing that this does need to go to a higher court, and you'll rarely see that. Normally, judges are very, very firm in their decision. They're very stately in their decision, and that's what they want the decision to be. This appellate court actually admitted and recommended that it get bumped up to the state Supreme Court. So that's where it's going to sit. It's sitting on their docket right now. And everybody is kind of wondering and waiting because this easily could go both sides. So what are the possible decisions? What are the possible ramifications of this? So there are decisions on the no-fault approach. The Mississippi, that it's a conditional gift based on contractual law and must be returned to the donor. That's a distinctive possibility. Now, the second is the idea of a Montana-based decision and a revocable gift, a conditional gift in contemplation of marriage, but at no fault, fault or no fault, it should remain as a gift. And three, a conditional contract, such as Massachusetts, that the court should consider a particular case at fault determination on a case-by-case basis. So it depends on who terminated the marriage. This is walking into that, honestly, this is kind of where I thought this case would be, that it would be decided one at a time who was going to do this. And then I realized the amount of constriction, the amount of ramification on actual individual courts could be quite obtrusive, could be very difficult and very lengthy, involve quite a bit more money and quite a bit more lawyers. So something like this. All right, so this leaves us to our last little bit, which is on the decision of this case, there are a few things to consider. So the first thing to consider is, what if this particularly was not a newly purchased ring? What if this was a fairly heirloom? Well, now that throws a monkey wrench in the whole thing. That if you ask somebody to marry you with your grandmother's great-grandmother's ring, then are you willing to risk giving away a family heirloom to someone who might break the condition of that lawsuit? Now, you also run into the thing of replacement cost or recovery of that ring. So a lot of people have told me that no, in that case, you should actually go through and figure out how much it's worth and what the ring is, and then you can work out the difference with money. Well, that depends on who's going to buy it, who's going to sell it, everything like that. And you and I both know that there are quite a few times that a $70,000 ring in a jewelry store, especially Tiffany's, is not going to bring $70,000 on the second hand or on the retail market. Now, yes, I guarantee you it is a fabulous ring. It is absolutely gorgeous. But if that gentleman receives the ring back today and wants to sell it, and he gets $20,000, maybe $25,000 for that same ring, wow, he's doing incredible. So do you base the value on what it costs, what it retails for, what it's resale for, what it's actually sold for? So anybody can tell you the ring is worth $70,000. When somebody actually ponies up the cash, that's when you figure out how much it's actually going to be worth. All right, now second thing to consider is prenuptial agreements. So if we're walking into a situation where a prenuptial agreement is sold, does that count towards the appropriation of the ring in any case? Now, the thing that you run into on this, the difficulty at least, is that it could possibly be a scenario where they can argue, well, there was no nuptials. They didn't actually get married. Therefore, the prenuptial agreement shouldn't count at all. Well, if the prenuptial agreement only goes on with the application of the wedding, then possibly the gift, the conditional gift of the engagement ring makes it more difficult. All right. the third thing and something that a lot of people would have to consider is the prevention of an unjust enrichment. This is what I jokingly refer to as the J-Lo effect, which is currently J-Lo is sitting on 6 different engagement rings. And yes, she still has all of them. So in that case, who actually, is going to prevent somebody from going around and getting engagement ring after engagement ring after engagement ring just to solely, enrich themselves in obtaining these rings? Now, yes, that's going to be a rare, few and far between piece, but something like that should be considered. And all right, number 4 thing to consider is judging justification. So in this case, we got into this weird agreement, a weird argument between them where she was accused of cheating, but it was never proved that she was cheating. Well, does his mindset count that she was? And in that case, does the court have the ability to judge not only his or her mindset, or do they require actual physical proof? So, and it not necessarily just infidelity. Now you're getting into a realm of emotional abuse or of any kind of arguments between them, and one person saying, that's it, I've had enough, but not being able to prove anything in a court of law as to why they called off the wedding. So absolute liability without fail. There was a lawsuit in New York in 1971, Gadden versus Gadden, that actually decided in a marriage lawsuit that let me actually read it word for word. In truth, most broken engagements, there is no at fault. So if in most cases there is no at fault, then it's extremely difficult for a court to decide what is actually going on. All right, another thing to consider, the Hartbaum Act. So that's the use and return to seduction, breach of promise, right? And believe it or not, the most famous case of this is going to be Frank Sinatra, who actually got felony arrested in New Jersey for the seduction and breach of promise and adultery of a woman up in New Jersey. So yes, Frank Sinatra, old Blue Eyes, was a felon. He was a gangster, but only because he was using the promise of marriage to seduce and commit adultery, which I absolutely find hilarious. Now, the Hartbaum Acts are mostly not in existence anymore. There's only 8 states that currently will enforce or currently have any kind of Hartbaum Acts on the books. However, in my beloved home state of Mississippi, yes, there is currently a Hartbaum Act, and it is illegal, a felony, to commit adultery. All right, so the ultimate question it poses is whether such issues should be resolved in a court of law or left to interplay between private conscience and soul norms. Basically, that is what this all comes down to, is are we going to take every single case and stick it in front of courts and allow every single case to go in front of the courts? If so, could that absolutely block up, clog a lot of different court systems? Luckily, there's not going to be a whole lot of cases that are going to especially go this far, because the monetary value, the cost of lawyers, the cost of legality is going to be so high. But it does not mean that some of the lower courts are going to have a massive number of folks that actually, want to throw their case in front of a judge and argue for their side. Now, I did hear one very, very interesting theory, and I really kind of like this, is that the engagement ring could be used as part of the promissory on the actual marriage. But the engagement rings, the engagement bands are not, the wedding bands are not. That because those, even though they're in the possession of the defendant in this case, they do not belong to her. They are a conditional gift. They're pre-presented as a gift before the wedding, and therefore they're not actually given as a gift until the actual wedding ceremony, and that's when that's when change of possession would actually take place. So I'm bringing you this through the news. I really am curious about this case to see where it goes. But in the meantime, I really want to know what you think. I mean, this is, like I said, this is not a simple case. This is not one of those where you're going to look at it and go, oh, it's one side or the other. A lot of it is in the middle ground, and a lot of it is going to be decided on what that particular court feels. And that is going to set an incredible precedent, not just in Massachusetts, I believe, but also all the way across the country. In the meantime, I want to know what you think. Please get in the comments, hit me up, tell me what you think is going to happen with this case. Tell me what you want to happen with this case. Tell me any of your opinions, any of your kudos, any of your wants, any of your warrants, all that stuff. I want to know it all because this is fascinating to me. As y'all know, that we deal in tons of jewelry every year. And when we come across cases in the news like this, I find it fascinating. I'm not just involved in jewelry at work, I'm involved in jewelry at all times. So this is really, really a lot of fun. All right. Well, if you got this far in the video, please do me a favor, run over to YouTube, jump over to a different format, X, Facebook, Instagram, hit me up, go ahead and give us a like, give us a share, give us a poke, give us a prod, give us a comment, please, because that helps the algorithm and it kind of helps us continue to grow, make this thing bigger, better, faster, the whole nine. And as always, if there's anything you need, anything at all that we can help you with, we will do everything in our power. And we know that your time is the most valuable thing that you have. So thank you for spending it with us. And we will actually let you know, we'll give you an update as this case goes on, because I'm extremely curious to see where it goes, what happens, what the new lawsuit or what the new decision would be, and its effect not only in Massachusetts, but in other states as well. All right. Well, thank you again, and see you next time.
Everlasting and true, it's all because of you. That smile sure looks good on you. That smile sure looks good